And on the show today, Derek will take us through the new movie releases. We'll have a shelf browse of our out-of-this-world science fiction section. And we'll get a bit of background on some of the new vinyl records hitting the shelves. Coming to you from downtown Swan Street, Richmond, it's the Picture Search Video and Vinyl Show.
But you know what? I just found something even better. The brand new movie with...
Oh, well, this week particularly there's, Operation Mincemeat. Awful name for an operation, isn't it, with the war. I guess you might know why it's called mincemeat if you know a bit about the operation, but I don't want to spoil anything. But a true war story, a plan to fool Hitler, which happened. So that's interesting for a start. It's always good to watch a movie you know that actually happened and feel like you're learning something at the same time. So Operation Mincemeat this week, and The Worst Person in the World. It's really good. Follows the trajectory of the love life of this particular girl, and it's done in moments. There's I think like 12 chapters, and it's hard to describe, but when something's well scripted and well acted, it was clever. It's good. The Worst Person in the World. Language lessons written by these two in it, Natalie Morales and Mark Duplass, and it's a clever Skyping thing to begin with, language lessons on the internet, and obviously they form a relationship after all that, and it's quite clever, and comedy drama, I guess. The Good Boss, I haven't seen this yet. It's well acclaimed. Apparently he is a good boss, so a completely different role for Javier Bardem than No Country for Old Men. The Good Boss, apparently it's very good. Love songs for tough guys. This is a new French film and I haven't seen it yet, but you can look anything up. Not this week, but maybe the week before last, Man in the Basement. Yeah, it's interesting. Thriller, I guess, drama, suspense, French movie, another French movie, Farewell with Mr. Huffman, a wartime film about hiding a Jewish person. I guess the Germans are a bit slower at getting it off the ground in France. They first of all had to occupy, and then if you hadn't got wind and you were Jewish, well, you're probably foolish at this time, but they're hiding a Jewish man mid-war, occupied France. Petite Maman, that was really nice. Just two young girls playing. No internet here, no phones, just cubby houses and such. I really liked it. You would call it art house. Really simple. Uncut Gems, yeah, that's intense, frenetic, yeah, it's one of those things, a bit like Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, I guess. Someone's committed themselves and they've got to get out of this hole, I guess, or they might come out a winner, they might come out a loser. We don't know. I don't know if you've seen it, but Uncut Gems, yeah, he could. It was very exciting. Not released on DVD in Australia, we've had to get that one in. And similarly, so we have Uncut Gems, which is, I think, is it Netflix, but made for a streaming service. We've also had to get in The Irishman. Recently, not released in Australia otherwise, in a physical format. We've got in Mr. In Between, Series 1. And a lot of people may not know, based originally the same writer, actor, in The Magician originally, which was a low budget but very effective movie filmed in Melbourne about the this same character here, which is in the series, but at least 10 years later. The magician, it's I guess a bit like Man Bites Dog, but somehow you're entertained by this guy. Man Bites Dog, it was, you're following around someone who kills people, I guess, for a living. Man Bites Dog was the French or Belgian one, and that was a bit, he wasn't very likeable. I mean, you wouldn't think he would be. This one is maybe slightly more entertaining as well, if that's possible. We also have imported recently, by request, because they're very good, this is a Japanese comedy horror, so Japanese Shaun of the Dead, if you will, One Cut of the Dead, a Korean horror, supernatural thriller, The Wailing, also imported recently on request, because it's very good.
Down to the video, down to the video store.
from England, we have in reissues of King Crimson, which is really exciting. The Stephen Wilson remix. He's the go-to man. When I say remix, it doesn't mean it's been scratched. I think they're saying going to the original sources. In some cases, correcting perhaps the levels that might have been the vocals too hidden in the background, or. But yeah, going to the original sources, doing a very good recording, and Steve Wilson. Generally, mostly, people are liking his work, and it's always progressive rock. Jethro Tull, and now King Crimson. So we've got a lot of King Crimson reissues, the Steve Wilson mix, if that's what you call it. I think the most celebrated, there's a lot of good ones, most celebrated is, sorry I doubled up there, but In the Court of the Crimson King. And we also now have a choice, a bit more expensive. You get a whole bonus record with alternate versions or studio takes or demo. So there's an extra record in there of the album represented by alternative takes, which is very popular these days, like they did with the Beatles reissues. While they're reissuing, they're doing Fripp. The main crazy guitarist from King Crimson coined the term Frippatronics because of his crazy guitar work, but very hard for people to imitate. They just can't do the chords that he does. Apparently he's very clever. You might know his stuff, but here's a lot of solo Fripp in a sense, not out of King Crimson, but working with other people as well as solo. Fripp and Eno. That's actually quite famous. No Pussyfooting, well regarded. Evening Star is also well regarded. So more Fripp and Eno. They're also reissuing some XTC, which is great. We have all of these on all the XTC on CD, but that's the Apple Venus Wasp Star, Apple Venus 1 Wasp Star, strange name. There's a bit of Tom Waits reissued. This is the early years. This is before Tom learnt to put on the smoky alcoholic voice, just singing his songs that would appear in his first few albums with the voice that he does put on. He's a really nice natural singer here. Early Years Volume 1. There's an Early Years Volume 2 in here as well. And speaking of the early albums, Closing Time, Nighthawks at the Diner, there's Early Years Volume 2. Really recommend those. You'd almost call it country. Heart of Saturday Night, Mule Variations a bit later. It's a great album. And Blue Valentine, which I really don't like the opening track. His version was Somewhere, but maybe it grows on you. Some Placebo reissued. And I wanted to say one thing about this Fripp Exposure. This has a bonus record. This album had Daryl Hall guesting on vocal, and the record label didn't like it, so they wouldn't release it. And it was supposedly like a trilogy. Robert Fripp's Exposure, Daryl Hall was going to, on the same label, put out Sacred Songs, and Peter Gabriel had the album self-titled, which is now known as Scratch, doing a version of the song Exposure on this. Was considered like a trilogy that they were hoping to put out together. The Daryl Hall Sacred Songs, Robert Fripp's Exposure, Peter Gabriel's Scratch. And the theme is that, well, Robert Fripp worked on all of the albums, and you wouldn't think Daryl Hall would be non-commercial, but his Sacred Songs is very well regarded. Quite different for Daryl Hall. Anyway, the label didn't like it, so they took Daryl Hall off, how they can separate vocals and music, and they released Exposure anyway on its own as it was at the time. You now get a double record here. You got the original record with Daryl Hall on it as well. So you got two versions of Robert Fripp's Exposure, the way he meant it to be as a bonus record with Daryl Hall actually guesting in guest background vocal, and some different arrangements, some different guitar work from Robert Fripp as well. So there's two versions of Robert Fripp's Exposure now available for the first time.
So we're looking at vinyls now.
Oh yeah, records.
Yep.
Don't call them vinyls. Actually, this is my chance.
Yeah, go.
No, I mean, you know, I shouldn't pick people up on it. Language changes, I guess.
Yeah.
But I just would have thought this is not a vinyl, and they're not vinyls. See, but everyone's saying that. Even the old people have cottoned on. I don't know how that happened. But it's like, have you forgotten to say records? Yeah, they're made of vinyl. But there you go. That's my beef. I'll stop correcting people. I've had my say. Now, records.